Hello everyone. So in this session we will continue with the functions. In the yesterday's session we had discussed about loops and we had done some loops questions. Okay. So in this session we will start with the functions. So basically we have two types of functions in Python. Okay. Even before that, what are functions, right? So anyone tell me what are functions or why do we use functions or we can say why they are important. So basically, a function is like a block of code which only like execute, or we can say which only runs when it is called. That are known as functions. Okay. We can say a function is a block of code which only runs when called. Okay. Those are known as functions. Okay, and we can pass the data, which are known as parameters. We can pass arguments in the functions, and we can return whatever the result we want in the functions. So here we have two types of functions in Python. We have first built-in functions, and second we have user-defined functions. So built-in functions like we have absolute. Okay, we have absolute. We have any. Like we have many functions in Python. For example, let me write some. We have ABS for absolute. Then we have all like this. We have any and so on. Okay, that we will see later. In this session we will discuss about user defined function, like how we can create our own functions and how we can use it. Okay, so what is the basic syntax of functions? So here we can start with the def is a keyword which is known as define. Okay, def, and then here we can use name of your function. So here we can say you have to mention your function name, and then parenthesis, semicolon, and then indentation, and then whatever you want to print. Let's say your statement, or we can say your block of code. So this is how we can define function. Okay, def means define. We are defining a function, and this is the name of your function. Here we have parenthesis, and here we have semicolon, and here we have this block of code. So this is how we can define a function. And defining function is not enough. We have to call your function. So for calling your function, we can just mention your function name. Okay, whatever your function name is. So this is how we can call your function. So this one, let me write here. This is known as defining the function. And this is known as calling the function. Right. So for example, so let's see some examples here. So here we can start with the functions. For example, we have def. Let's say name of your function. Here is my underscore fun. Okay, funcy. And then your parenthesis and your semicolon here. And then we can print here. Let's see here I'm printing hello world. Okay, give me a second. Okay, so this is how we can define the function. And then here we can call your function name. For example, this is defining your function. And if you run this function, you will notice you will not have any output. So what we can do, we can simply call your function. So my underscore funcy. Okay, so whenever you call your function, then only this line of code will be executed. Okay, if you run this one, you will notice hello world. Okay, so this is how we can call the functions. Okay, it is very simple. We can mention def, your function name here, your parenthesis, your semicolon, and then enter. And here, this is your indentation part. And then whatever you want to write here. So here you can use print or you can use return. For example, def, your second function, let's say my second function. Okay, fancy, let's say. And then your parenthesis, semicolon. And let's say I want to write here return. Let's say 2 plus 2 here. or let's say again hello world. Okay. Now here you can notice in the first uh, like code here, I am using print here, and after printing, I am calling your function here simply. Okay. In the second code, I am using return here instead of print here. And when I run this program, your second one, which is my second function. Okay. And if you print this one, you will notice we have only hello world, which is from the first function. We don't have second hello world. Because of here, we have to use a print function. If you are using return here, then we have to use a print uh, like function here. So here you can mention print, and then whatever is inside your function, we are printing it. And when you run this, now we have two hello world. So this hello world is from the first function, and this hello world second from the second function. Now you can see the difference in the first code and this second code here. So basically in the first code, we are using print here inside your function, and then we are simply calling your function name, right? Without using print here. Secondly, here I'm using my second function. Okay, and here I'm using return here. Return and hello world. But here, whenever you are using return inside a function, you have to mention print whenever you are calling your function. So that is compulsory. Okay, so you can see the difference in this code and this code. Okay, so here, now why do we use the return keyword here? Return is simply for returning your whatever your output is. For example, you are returning any mathematical operations, you are returning any kind of operation, then you can use return keyword. Okay, and always use return instead of print. Okay, visualization, sure. So let me open the Python tutor. So this is a website. Here you can click on Python. And let me copy this one code. And here you can click on edit code. Okay, now just paste your code here. Okay, so this is a very simple function, and you can click on visualize execution. So we can start with nest here. So now you can see the code will flow from top to bottom. So first line this will flow, and second this one, and third this one. Okay, so here you will notice I will click on nest. Okay, so here we have this function here, my function. Okay, inside function we don't have anything like means we don't have any arguments. And then so here we are defining function simply. So this line currently will not execute it because this is defining your function, not calling your function. So directly your Python interpreter will jump to line number 4, which is my function. And when you click on nest, you will notice my function will be executed. And when this will execute it, so whatever inside your function, this will be executed. When I click on nest, you will notice this one, this red arrow you can see, print hello world. And then you will click on nest, hello world will be printed. Okay, so flow will be from first. This line will be executed. Okay, now Python sees that, okay, it is a like the user is defining the function. Okay, so this one line will be executed. Secondly, now it is like defining a function. So this line, whatever inside the function will be ignored by your Python interpreter currently. Okay, after that, this line, now the Python interpreter move to this line, which is calling your function name. Okay, when Python sees that you are calling the function name, this is second line, which will be executed. And this is like calling the function. So now Python interpreter will find this my function name here. Okay. Now Python interpreter will move to again line number 691. Okay, so this is your third execution. So Python interpreter will find, okay, this is a function name, and the Python interpreter will jump to this line, and inside this line, inside this function, Python interpreter print this particular line or whatever the code inside this function. Okay, so this is how we are. Yes, yes, we can call a function in some other functions as well. we can call it. Okay, so this is how we can, this is how this particular code is flowing from top to bottom. So first, this line will be executed, and currently it is a defining a function. So Python will jump to next line, which is after this function, this line. So this is second line executing. So Python interpreter will find, okay, this is a function calling. So it will move to function defining. Okay, so means this line. And inside of this line, inside of function, we have this particular line. So this will be executed. So this line will be executed at last. Okay, same as uh, here we are getting it. So we can click on first here. So first the Python will read this line, def my funcy nest. Okay, and then Python will see my funcy as a calling function. And then your Python interpreter again move to first line, which is def my funcy. And then inside my funcy, which is a function name, we have this line, print hello world. And the hello world will be printed here. Okay, so this is how we can use functions. Okay. So whenever you are using your functions, make sure you use return inside a function, not print here. Okay, like return is more efficient, or we can say more appropriate for a function than print keyword. So always use return inside a function. And rest, it depends on the use case. But most of time we use return inside a function, and then while calling your function name, we use print here. Okay, but if you are using print inside a function, then you have to use, then you can simply call your function here. Okay, so this is a difference in this line and this line. Then we have something known as arguments and parameters in the functions. Now, what are arguments and parameters? See, for example, let's say we have this name, def. Let's say function name is my. Let's say simple funcy. Okay. And here I am taking an argument here. Let's say name as an argument. Okay. So this one is known as your argument. So whenever you are providing any like any keyword or any variable inside your function, okay, inside your function defining, that thing is known as arguments. So these are arguments. And then let's say we can return, we can name this anything. Let's say hello plus your name. Simple. And then here we can use print funcy, your function name. And inside function name, we have to provide a name here. Okay, because here we are asking for a name. Then here we can provide a name, let's say John. Simple. Okay. And if you run this program, you will see hello John. Okay, hello John here. You can add space if you want. Now hello John. Now this one is known as parameter. So this one is known as argument, and this one is known as parameter. So here we can write parameter. Now, what are parameter and what are arguments? So parameters, arguments are like a variable only, but here we are using this variable inside a function defining. So whenever you are defining a function and whenever you are using any variable inside a function defining means here, then that is known as arguments. Okay. And whenever you are providing the value of your argument while function calling, that is known as parameter. So this one is known as parameter. Basically, you can see name is a variable and John is a value of this variable name. Okay, in a simple terms. But here we are using inside functions. So that is why they are known as arguments and they are known as parameters. Okay, so this is important. Don't get confused in the arguments or parameters. Arguments are like whenever you are giving any variable while defining a function, means here. So this is you are defining a function, and parameters you use while calling your functions. Okay, so this is mainly when you use while calling your function. Okay, then we have a concept of default parameters. Now, what are default parameters? So let me copy this code here. Now in the previous code here, we are using name here, and here we are providing this value of name in the parameters. But let's say here you can also mention, let's say name equal, let's say there. So what we are doing here? So here this is your default parameter. Okay, this one is a default parameter. Means, for example, if you are avoiding using any parameter while function calling, then here you can use default parameter. Okay, if I run this, you will see hello there. Because let me show you the difference. If I using name here, simple name. So this is my argument and this is my function which will return hello plus name. And here I'm not providing any parameter here. Okay, but function is asking for a parameter because here we have argument, but function is asking for a parameter. Okay, so what we can do, if I run this code here, you will see we have this error here because function is asking for a parameter, but here we are not providing anything here. Okay, any value here. So this will throw an error. So what if a user is not providing anything and we want to avoid error? Then here we can use a default parameter. Let's say hello, anything there. So if user is not providing any parameter, then this one is our default parameter. So if I run this one, you will see hello there. Okay, but if the user is providing here, let's say here I'm also providing John. So this line, this John will override this there here. So which means we have this hello John. Okay, hello John. So you can see the difference. This is known as default parameters. So default parameters are like whenever you are providing parameter while after your argument. Okay, and you can also provide another parameter here, like for example here. So this parameter which is while your function calling, so this will override this particular default parameter. Okay, so this one is known as default parameters. Okay, now let's see another example. For example, let's say we want to sum numbers. Let's say def add underscore num. Let's say we have this a comma b. Okay, now here we can return simply a plus b, and here we can call your function. So how to call? Print your function name here, add num, and then your values. Let's say 2 comma 3. So this will provide you 5 here. Okay, now what if I'm not providing any value here? So this will throw me the error. You can see we have this error here. What if I'm providing one value, only one value? So this will again throw me error because Python, the function is asking for two values, and here I'm providing only one value. So this will throw an error. So that is why here I can use a default parameters. Let's say a equal 3 and b equal 2 here. And then here I can remove any parameter. And if I run this code, you can see we have this 5 only because here we are using this default parameters. And then if you are using any other parameters, let's say 4 comma 5. So this will provide you 9 here. Okay, 9. Which means these parameters, these numbers override these default numbers. So that is like a benefit of having like default parameters. Okay, is it clear? So this is like the concept of default parameters. Then second, we have another concepts which are known as uh, arbitrary arguments, or we can say asterisk ARGS. So let me give one example, then I will explain. Let's say we have this function here, def fun c, simple fun c. Okay, and here let's say here I'm using names here. Okay, as a argument, and then here I'm printing the, let's say, first name is, okay, and here I can use name, and then let's say, sorry, names here, let's say second here, or let's say 0 here. And here I'm calling the function which is fun c, and here I'm providing names here. Let's say name is John, name is Linux. Okay, and let's say name is Android. Okay, now like what is like this arbitrary arguments? and when we use these arguments. So arbitrary arguments are like when we don't know about how many, how many parameters we have to provide while while calling a function. In that case, we use arbitrary arguments. Like if you don't know about how many arguments that will be passed, then in that case you can use this asterisk here, which means asterisk means this function can take as many as parameters. Okay. 1 second. So basically, now these are known as arguments. Now in this case, we can have as many as arguments as we want. Okay. So now what we can do? Now if I run this program, you will notice we will have the first name is John here. Because here inside names, I'm using the index number 0, which is at 0 index we have John here. So if I run this one, you will notice that the first name is John. So in that case here, what basically there's a little correction. This one is known as parameters and these are known as arguments. Okay, just say the reverse. So here these are known as parameters. Okay, let me correct this one. And these are known as arguments. Okay, like John is an argument here. So here we can use argument. So this means here we can provide as many as arguments as we want. So if whenever we are not sure about how many arguments we are going to pass in any function name, then we can use this asterisk sign. So this will take as many as arguments, means as many as names as you can provide. Okay. For example, if you remove this asterisk, so this will throw an error. Okay, why error? Because when I run this one, you will notice function 1 takes one positional argument and 3 were given, which means here this one is a names here. Now here we have one parameter, but with this parameter we are providing 3 arguments. Okay, so here with this one parameter we have to provide 2 more parameters. For example, we can provide A here and B here. Then this statement is true here. Okay, because here we are assigning John to names, Linux to A and Emil to B. But here, when you remove this one, now here we have only one parameter and 3 arguments. So when you run this one, we will have this error. So that is why we are using this asterisk sign, which means whatever the arguments, whatever the number of arguments we have, we can provide inside this names parameter. And then we can access those names with the help of index value. Okay, let's say we have this index value 2 here. So here we have the first name or the last name is this name. Okay, email here. So this is like the benefit of using the arbitrary arguments. Okay, same as we have this arbitrary keywords. So let me uncomment. Sorry, comment. Same as we have this concept, which is known as keyword arguments. Okay, which we can use key WARGS. Okay, so again, let me write an example. Let's say we have def. Let's say we have one C here. Okay, now here, let's say we can use double sign and let's say names here. Okay, now we can use print the first name or we can mention the last name, whatever is comma. And here we can use, let's say name. And here we can provide the keyword. Okay. For example, F name, which is first name. And then here we can call the function, which is func. Now here we can provide as many as parameters as well as arguments we want. For example, here we can mention, let's say F name equal, let's say John. Then we can use comma here. And let's say we can use second name, which is S name, second name equal, let's say email, and so on. So here now you can notice in this code, in the previous example, we are using arbitrary arguments. Means here we are providing one parameter and we are providing multiple arguments here. In the second code, we are using a single variable here, which is a single parameter. But with this parameter, we are providing a key here and a value here. And when you run this code here, you will notice we have the first name is John here. Because here we are accessing names of F name. So F name is John here. So these are known as keyword arguments. Because with these arguments, we are providing the key as well. So F name, S name, these are keys, and John and email, these are arguments, or we can say value of those keys. So we can also use this one, type of functions. Okay, it depends on your use case. Okay, so now next we have how we can pass a list as an argument. No, basically it depends on your use case. Like it depends on how many times you are calling this function. So basically in this case, we are calling this function one time only. Okay, one time. So this will run one time only. If you call multiple times, so this will run times. So it doesn't depends on your number of entries you are providing. Okay, you can provide as many entries here, but it's all about how many times you are calling your function. So basically it depends on your calling your functions. For example, let me copy this one and here we can paste. Now this time I can change name here. Let's say this one. Okay, and when you run this one, so first here we have the first name is John because of this first line. Okay, first calling. And second calling here we have this one fancy. And in this first name we have different value here. So this is second function calling. Same as you can use like you can like print or use your function. It depends on how many times you are calling this particular function. Yeah, it is showing only F name because here I am only printing F name. If you put comma here, you can also use names and S name. Okay, here you can use S name as well. So if you run this one, you will notice we have this John and here we have this email and second. So it depends on which name or which key you are accessing inside your print function. So previously I am only accessing F name and second time I am accessing S name also. Okay. So it depends on your like how many keys you are accessing. Okay. Now how we can pass a list inside a function. So we can simply create a function, let's say def, again fancy, and here we can use, let's say fruits. Okay. And here we can use for x in your fruits. Fruits is a list here. Then we can print x here. Okay. And then here we can provide your fruits as a list. Let's say here we have apple, we have cherry, like this. And then we can call a function fancy fruits. Okay, and when you run this code, you will have apple, cherry, and grapes. So this is like we are using loop inside a function. We have this fancy, here we have this fruits. Now fruits is like a parameter here. Okay, and here inside function we are using a loop for x in fruits. So whatever the items or elements in the list fruits, so this will iterate and keep on printing the elements. And then and here we have this fruits list here. And here we are passing this fruit list as a argument inside fancy. Okay. So this is how we can like use or we can pass a list inside any function. We can pass any dictionary. We can pass any tuple or any other data type. Okay. Now we have this written values. Let's say we have this def. Let's say add underscore now. Okay, let's say we have this A, comma B numbers. And here we can, let's say, return A plus B. Now, what is the beauty of this functions? So you can call these functions as many times as you want. No, you can also use for loop and while loop both. This particular line. Uh, yeah, apart from functions, you can use a simple for loop. Okay, like here for x in your fruits, and you can simply bring x here, and you can uncomment your fruits. Okay, so if you run this one, you will again have apple, cherry, grapes. So you can also iterate without loops. Okay. So this is like we can use for loop without functions and with functions. Okay, that we had discussed yesterday. Even you can use while loop here in place of for loop. Okay, now here we are adding numbers a and b here. Now we can print a value of a, which is let's say 2 comma 2, 2 comma 3 or whatever. So we have 5 here. Okay, we have this error written a and b. Sorry, we have to call the function add underscore num. Okay, so here we have this 5 here. Now, what is the beauty of the function? You can call them as many times as you want. Okay, for example, now I am using this call function again 3 times. And here you can simply keep on changing your value 5 comma 5 or any other value like this one. Okay, and you can run this one 5, 10, 13 here. So that is like the beauty of any function. You can avoid repetition of your code, and whenever you are avoiding the repetition of your code, so this will like decrease the size of your code, or we can say this will like decrease the length of your code. And the shorter your code, the more the less time this will take for running. Okay, so the functions also avoid repetition of your code here, and you can call them as many times as you want. And let's say if we have any function, let's say you are creating any function, let's say def func. And now here in this time, at this time, you are not sure about what you want to write inside any function. Then here you can use pass. Pass is a statement which you can use. Okay, if you want to leave any function empty. Okay, and when you call your function, so this will return nothing. Okay, simple. And when you leave your function empty without even pass, so this will throw an error. Okay, this will throw an error. Okay, you have this indentation error at line number 755. So you cannot leave your function empty. So that is why always use pass statement if you don't want to write anything. So pass will like skip your function and you can fill it whenever you want. So this is known as pass statement. Okay. Then we have a concept of local and global variables. Now, what are local variables and global variables? Anyone? Like what are local variables and global variables? Basically, function is not executed if it is in the between. Basically, here you can see. Let's say we have this particular function here. Okay, this one. Now, this is your defining a function. You are defining this function. Okay, so whenever you are defining a function, so this is not enough. Let's say you don't have these lines. Okay, now we have this function here. So when you run this function, nothing will happen. Like no code will be executed because defining the function is not enough. You have to call your function. Okay, so for calling the function, we have to use the name of your function, which is print and number. And here we have this numbers here. And then we have the output here. So if you are not calling your function this line, okay, whatever is inside your function, this will not execute it. Okay, so we can write here this line will not execute it. Oh, until you call the function. Okay, so that is important. If we are not calling the function, so this line will not execute it ever. But if you're calling a function, so this line will execute. Okay. So what are global variables and local variables? So local variables are the variables which you can use only inside your functions. And global variables are variables which you can use in the entire Python code. Okay, for example, let's say we have, yeah, let's say we have this function def fun. See. Okay, now let's say here we have this x value 300. Now here we are printing the value of x. Okay, so this will like let me call my function one c. So this will provide me x value 300. Now what if I use like if I use print x outside of my function? Okay, outside of my function like this one. Previously I was using print x inside my function. Now here I'm using print x outside of my function. So now this will throw me an error because x is not defined, because this particular x is inside my function. So I can only use this x value or variable inside my function, not outside of my function. For example, let's say we have another value of x here, x equal 1. So we have two x here, x1, which is outside of a function, and then we have another x 300, which is inside of a function. And if I am printing x here, and let's say I'm using again print x here. Okay, now this print x is inside of my function. And this print x, this is outside of my function. Okay, so if I run this one, you will notice we have this 1 because of this 1 here, and then we are calling my function func, and then inside func we have this line. So here we are calling 300. Now you can see we have the same variable x and x, but one is outside your function and another is inside your function. So this one is known as your local. This one is known as local variable because this is inside a function, and this one is known as global variable, which is outside of your function. So global variables can be used anywhere. Okay, you can use this x value anywhere in your entire code. But local variables are only used inside your functions. So how to fix this problem? Like how we can use this variable as a global variable. So this we can use with the help of global keyword. Okay, we have this global x and x equal 300. Now in this case, we are making this x as a global variable by using this global keyword here. Okay, now if I run this code, you will notice we have output 1 and 300. Okay, so let me remove this one. Okay, let me remove this one as well. So here we have this function. Now let's say I'm using this print statement outside of my function. Okay, now this one is outside of my function. So this will provide me 300. Okay, without any error. Okay, we have this error. I think something is wrong. Okay, we have to call the function first. So here we can use uh, we have to call the function which is my func. Okay. and then we can run this. Now you can see we have this 300 here. No, let's say, see, here, let's understand the flow of this code. We have this function here, and then here we are making this x as a global variable. Now this x is now a global variable. Okay. Now to use this global variable, we have to first call a function, that is we are calling, and then we can use print x. So this will print me 300. Now what if I remove this function? See, so this will throw an error. Okay, this will throw an error because here x is not defined. Why it is not defined? It is not defined because of it is a local variable or global. It is not defined because we are not calling the function yet. Because after all, this x is inside my function. So for using this x here, we have to call it. Okay, you have to call the function. So that is why calling function is important if you want to use any variable or any method or any other code of line inside a function. So calling function is important. So that is why here I'm calling this function and then we are printing x here. So x is 300. Okay. Now if you remove this global x, now this will throw an error. Okay, because now here again I am calling my function, but this will throw an error because of this print x. Okay, because this x is now a local variable. Okay, so the name x is not defined. But if I create this global x here, now this will not throw an error. But calling your function is important. Okay, calling the function is very important because after all your x is inside your function. So if you are not calling your function, so how the Python interpreter will see x? Okay, because whenever you call your function, the Python interpreter notice x is inside your func. Then only we can have value of x. Okay, so this is how your code will flow. Any questions in this local or global variable? Okay, let me give you one more example of this. Let's say we have this value of x equal 1. And then here I am defining a function. Let's say def, let's say func. Okay. And here we have this global x again. Let's say x value is now 300. Now here I'm printing x. Okay, and here I am calling x. Sorry, calling my function, which is 1c. So this will give me value of 300. Okay, only 300. Now what if I use this x equal 1 outside of my function here? Okay, outside of my function. So if I run this, this will again give me 300 because here we are first printing x, then I am changing the value of x. But what if I use this func, this print x outside of my function after this one? So this will provide me 300. Okay, so this is how the code will flow. So here we are not changing any value of your function. Okay, so here we have this func here, and here we are making this variable as global, and here we have another variable which is x equal 1. Now we are calling a function which is func. If I remove this one, then we have the answer 1 here. Okay, 1 here because of we are calling now this variable x equal 1. Okay, it is like a simple global variable we are calling. But if I'm mentioning here, I want to call the variable which is x inside my function, then this will print 300. Okay, and what if I use this x equal 1 here? Okay, so now you can notice this is changing my value here. So this will change the value of x. Why? Because first, let's say here, first this line of code will execute. Okay, first this line of code will execute. Then after func, now the Python interpreter see, okay, it is a function, or especially it is a function defining. So Python interpreter will say that I have to find the function calling part. So then the Python interpreter move to this line, second line. Second line will be executed this one. So Python interpreter will check, okay, now func, which is this one, we have to, now this is a calling of function. So now Python interpreter will directly jump into this line, which is, it is says that we are making a variable x as a global variable, and this is the value of x. Okay, now up to here, Python interpreter knows that, okay, we have this value x here, which is 300. Then here, this line of code will execute. Now, before printing the value of x, we are changing the value of x with the help of this variable which is x equal 1. Now, this variable x equal 300, this variable, these are same only because here x is a global variable. Okay, x is a global variable. So here this value, this x here and this x, they are same here. So here if I, this is my previous value of x. Okay, so this is previous value of x and this is my current value of x. So after this line, this x equal 3, the Python interpreter will see this line x equal 1. So before the value of x was 300 and here we have changed the value of x which is 1 here and then we are printing x here. So what is the value of x which is 1 here? So basically in the middle of before printing the actual value of x, we are changing the value of x with 1. Okay. So that is why this is like a proof that x here is a global variable. Okay, because we can change the value of global variable with this value of x, which is outside of your function. Okay, but what if I remove this global here? Okay, and if I just simply print x here. Okay, now this will throw the error because name is not defined. Okay, and if I yeah, if I use this line, so this will provide me 1 only. Okay, so one thing, so this one is outside of your function, so this will throw an error. But this is also outside of your function, but this will sees x as a 1 value because x here is defined. So here we have value 1. So in the previous example, we are changing the value of x. And in this example, we are not changing. We are just we don't have any any other x to change. Okay. So this is like the concept of global and local variable. Any questions? Any confusion in this global and local variable? Okay, so the conclusion is the local variables are the variables which we can use only inside the functions, and global variables are the variables which we use outside of your functions. Okay, okay. So let me the browser, just a second. So let's say we have this def here, and let's say fun c here, and then we have x equal 100, and then here we are using print x here. Okay, then we are calling a function fun c here, simple, and then we can visualize it. Okay, so first we have this def fun. So I will click on next here. So here we have this function. Now when you notice, so Python interpreter sees, or okay, it is a like defining of your function. So after defining, after seeing the first line, Python will directly move to your function calling. Okay, it will ignore line number 2 or line number 3 because these are not executable. We cannot execute this file without calling a function. Okay, so here we have this one def func, which is your function name here. And then here, this is like defining a function, and then it will directly move to line number 5, which is func, which is calling a function. And when I click on next, so now again, we have this function c. So Python will find where is func. So it will again move to line number 1. And next, now it will see second line, which is x equal 100. And then print x, which is 100. So now x is 100 here, and then next. So 100 is printed. Okay. Now what if I use here, let's say, let's say here, x equal 1. Okay, and instead of using this print here, I'm using this print here. print x. Okay, if I visualize, so we can click on next. Okay, now x equal 1, then next, it will see the function calling, and then it will move to line number 3 again. Okay, so here we have this variable x equal 100, and then here we are printing x here. Okay, now this function you can see it will return no value, return value none, because x is a local variable, and here we are not returning the x value, but here we are printing x. But this print x means this one line number 8, x equal 1. Okay, x equal 1. So if I print x equal 1, because x here is a local variable. So if we are printing x, which means we are printing this variable x equal 1. Okay, and this is a local variable. So this will not print because of this print statement. Okay, so I hope this much is clear. Okay, now we can move to recursion. Now what is recursion? Okay, so what is recursion? So recursion is like a function. It is like function calling itself. That is known as recursion. Okay, so recursion is a kind of a function which accepts a function for calling it. So recursion totally means function calling itself is known as recursion. Okay, so how we can use? So let's say let's create a function for factorial, for calculating the factorial of a number. So here we can use def factorial. Okay, and here we will take a value here x. Then here we will use if x equal 1. Okay, then simply return 1. Because what is the factorial of 1? 1. Then else, if x is not 1, then we can return x multiply. And then here again I'm calling the function factorial. Okay, and then here I'm using x minus 1. Simple. Okay, and then here let's say my number is number 3 here. And then I can use print, let's say the factorial of x is let's say your, we can call your function which is factorial again, and then your number. Okay, so what is the factorial of 3? So 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is 6. Okay, now how this code is executing. So let's see in the Python tutor. See, first we have this function def func here. Sorry, we have to remove this line. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so here we have this function factorial, and this is factorial is like my name of my function, which take one parameter. Okay, we have one parameter here, x here. Okay, and then here we have semicolon. So after reading this file, my Python interpreter will directly jump into line number 8, which is num equal 3. So when I click on next here, you can see we have this factorial. So after this line, my Python interpreter move to this line, num equal 3, because these lines are currently of no use. Okay, these lines are not of no use, which means these will only execute when you call your function. Okay, so here we have this num equal 3, and then my Python interpreter will see this line, line number 9. Okay, which is print. Now here we are printing the factorial of x is. Okay, this line will print it as it is. Then here I am calling my function factorial here. Factorial, and inside x, here I am providing num. Inside num we have 3. So basically here I am providing 3 here. So I am finding the factorial of 3, because num is a variable which store 3 here. And here x is my parameter, num is my argument here. Right? Num is my argument. So inside num we have value 3. So here factorial brackets 3. So inside factorial we have 3 here. Okay. Sorry. Okay, then my function, then my Python interpreter will check for this function factorial. Okay, so that is why it is moving on line number second, where we have this factorial function. Then this line will execute if x equal 1. Okay, now it will check if x equal 1. So now x is not 1. So now my Python interpreter move to line number 5, which is else statement. Okay, so next here, else here. So now x is not 1, so but x is 3 here. Okay, so now my Python interpreter move to line number 6, which is this statement is 2 here. And it is saying return x multiply. What is x here? 3. 3, and here I'm again calling my function. You can see factorial. Here I'm again calling my function. And here, now in this case, I am providing value x minus 1, which means, what is x minus 1? Here, which means we are calling my factorial x multiply by factorial of x minus 1, which means in what is x? 3, and what is factorial? Your factorial. And what is x? 3 minus 1? 2 here. So which means we have multiplied 3 into 2, like this one. Okay, so what is your value of x? 3 here. Okay, here you can see value of x is 3, and when I click on next, and what is the value of x? So this value, which is x minus 1, is 2 here. So here you can see after reading this line, my Python interpreter again moved to line number 1, which is this line, which is whenever we are defining a function. So here we have again a function call inside function. Okay, so that is known as recursion. We are running function inside function, which is we are calling function inside this function. So when my Python interpreter sees this line, it will again move to line number second, and then next. Then it will again check if x is x equal 1 or not. Now this time x is 2 here. You can see x is 2 here. So this will skip this line and move to else statement. Okay. So here we can click on next. Now here we have this else. Now x multiply by 2, which is 6 here. Next. Okay, now x is 1 again. And then here we will calculate, and then we will print. Now here it will check x is 1 here. Now this condition is true. If x equal 1, so this line will be printed. Okay, and then after this line, we have this line number 9. Next, which is the factorial of x is 6 here, which is 3 into 6 here. Okay, so this is how this code is flowing. The recursions are very complex in nature. So we will solve some more questions on recursion. So recursions are like mainly functions calling itself. So that is why here we have this function. Okay, inside this function, we have another function, which is same function calling itself. Okay, so they're like a little bit complex, but we will see in like how we can like solve this. We will see some questions on recursion, even some not more questions, like many questions. Then we have lambda. Now lambda are known as the anonymous function. Okay, so why they are known as anonymous function? Because okay, let me move to this code again. Let's say we have this factorial here. Okay, x here. So this is my function defining. Here I'm defining the function. So this is my first line of execution. The Python interpreter will see this line, which is like line number 1, this one. After seeing this line, now this code will only be executed whenever someone call this function. So that is why my Python interpreter will ignore these lines and move to line number, this one, 786. So this is second line of execution. Okay, second line of execution, where we have simple variable num equal 3, which is not doing any operation. Okay, here we have this variable num equal 3. Then my Python interpreter move to this line, print the factorial of x is, and here I am calling my function factorial num here. So basically inside factorial, which is this one, we have this value 3 here. Okay, this value means 3 here. Num is a variable, and here we have this num variable. Inside num we have 3 here. So here we have 3 here. And what is 3 here? 3 is a argument here of value x. X is a variable and num is a, or 3 is a value here, which means x is an argument and 3 is a parameter of that particular argument. Okay, so this is line number 3, which will be executed. Then after seeing this line, Python interpreter directly jump into this factorial, this one, this line. So this is again will execute. This is line number 4th, which will be executed. Okay, now after this one, Python will check. Now these line will be executed because your function has been called here. So now this line will be executed. Now here we'll, now what is the value of x? X value is 3 here because of this num3. Now it will check if 3 equal 1. So now this condition is false here. So this will ignore, Python will ignore this line. Now Python will move to else condition, which is this, the only one condition which is remaining. Okay. So Python, now this is your next line of execution, which is line number, I guess, this is line number 4th, 5th, 6th. This is a 6th line of execution. Here we are telling 6. So here we are basically returning, which is what is the value of 3, which is sorry, x, we have 3 multiply by. Now here we are calling a function again, factorial. So here we have this factorial. Now inside factorial we have this value x minus 1. What is x minus 1? What is your value of x? 3. 3 minus 1, 2 here. So now this value of 2 is means this value, which means here I am calling my function again. Okay, here inside my function I am calling another function. Okay, so while seeing this line, Python will jump again into this line, this line. Okay, so here we have factorial and the value of x is 2 here, this time 2 here. So again, Python will check for this condition. If 2 is equal 1, so this condition is false here. So Python will again ignore this line and jump on else statement. And then it will perform. Then here we have this value. Previously it was 3. Then here we have 2 here. And then here we have this x. Now what is your value of x here? Again 3. And then it is again calling the function factorial, which means now what is your current value of x? Which is 2 here. Okay, because of this operation. 2 minus 1, we have 1 here. Okay, which is 2 minus 1, 1 here. Then it will again move to this, while seeing this code, my Python interpreter again jump to this line. Okay, now current value of x is 1 here because of this operation. Now it will check this condition again. If x equal 1 or not. Yes, 1 is 1. So 1 is equal to 1. So this will only return 1. Okay, only return 1. And here, then after this one, we will have all the operation. So value 3 into 2 into 1. Okay, which means 3 into 2 into 1, which is 6 here. So that is why we have the answer 6, which means you can think of like this line will keep on executing until this condition becomes true here. Okay, which means let's say if we have this number, let's say if value of x is 6 here. So this code will execute 6 times. 6, then 6 minus 1, 5, 5 minus 1, 4, 4 minus 1, 3, 3 minus 1, 2, 2 minus 1, 1. Then it will check this condition. If 1 equal 1, then this whole code will stop executing. Okay, it is like a loop only. Okay, here we are iterating only, but in a different way. We are iterating using recursion here, not using loops here. So it is same as iteration. We are repeating your this line of code. We are repeating your this particular code of block again and again until this condition becomes true here. Okay, and then after becoming this condition true, then we are calculating all your values here, which is 3 into 2 into 1. Okay, which is 6 here. So make sure after executing all these condition, now which means here we are storing a number. Here we are 3, 2, and 1. Or if value of if num is 6 here, so here we have 6, comma 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we are calculating your recursion here. Sorry, your factorial here. Okay. So this condition will keep on like this one will keep on executing until your condition, this condition becomes true here. Okay. Is it clear? Okay. Okay, don't worry. We will solve some like many questions on recursion because recursion is a very complex as well as very important topic of functions. So we will solve many questions on recursion because recursion is like a very complex topic. So we will see it. Okay. Then we have lambda. So lambda are like anonymous functions. Okay, now why they are known as anonymous functions? Because for lambda, we don't need to create a function. Creating a function means def, your function name, etc. Okay, but whenever we are using lambda, we are not using def keyword here, or we are not creating a function from scratch. So that is why they are known as like anonymous function. For example, let's say we have a function to add 10 to argument a here. Okay, so let me comment this line. So here we can use x equal, we can use lambda here of a and then a plus 10, simple. And then we can simply print x. And lambda values, let's say a value is 5 here. So 5 plus 10, 15 here. Okay, 15 here. So which means here x is a variable. It is like a simple variable. Inside this variable, we have this line of code here. Which means here we have this lambda a. Okay, a is your argument here. Okay, a is your argument. Just like we have argument here, x is a, sorry, yeah, x is a, basically it is a parameter, but in the lambda we can say argument here. So a is a argument, or we can say it is a simple another variable. Okay, and then a plus 10. So this is your line of code. Okay, let me write this in this manner. Def, let's say we have this function a here, and here we are returning a plus 10. Now this line, this function and this function, they are same only. Okay, this function and this function, they are same. If I print this line of code, which is print fun of a means 5. Okay, so both will provide you 15 here. This 15 and this 15. If I run this one, you will notice 15, 15. So basically, this function and this function, they are same only. But this one is known as user-defined function, which is used, which is like created by using def keyword here. And this function, which is this one, this is created using an anonymous function, which is lambda here. Okay. Now here, now you can see the difference. Lambda here. Now this is only a one line of code. That's it. And this is a two line of code. So lambda is like more like flexible and faster than this manual function. Now here a is this value a here, which is an argument, or we can say parameter, whatever you want to say. Then a plus 10. This is an operation you are performing after defining a function. Okay, this is an operation you are performing. And then simply we are printing this line of code as it is. But instead of using function name, here we are calling function name, here using x here, which is a variable here. So think of like it is like a function name. X is a function name here. A outside. In the lambda, we cannot use a outside. Okay. It is like a one line program. Okay, so let me give you another example of this code. Let's say we have this y equal lambda. Let's say we have three variables now, x, comma, y, comma, z. Now these are known as parameters. Okay, these are known as parameters, x, y, z. And then we can use whatever operation we want to perform with this x, y, z. Let's say x multiply by y, y, z. Okay, this one. Sorry, here we have to use semicolon. Okay, and then we can simply print your y, and then we can provide three values, x, y, z, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so here we have this answer 4 into 3 into 2, 24 here. So this is an example of your anonymous function lambda. So here we have this lambda. Now y is like a function here. If I write this same program in the sense of function, then I can use def. Y is your name of your function, and x, y, z are like values here. Like these are like arguments here. And what kind of operation I want to perform with this argument? Then here I can use return x multiply by y multiply by z, like this one. And then here we can use this same line, print here also. So this code and this code, these are same only. Okay, but here we are using lambda and here we are using user defined function. Okay, that is the only difference. Basically, arbitrary arguments, it depends on a use case. Okay. Basically, they work, but in some scenarios, they doesn't. So it depends. It's totally depends on a use case. Okay. Like lambda is not like a very complex function. They are like very simple. They are mainly for the simple use cases, not for very complex use cases. So use it simply only. Don't try to make this complex. Okay. But yeah, we can use arbitrary arguments in the lambda. Okay. Is it clear? Any other questions? Okay. So now we can move to questions. Now I have one simple questions for all of you. So basically write a function that inputs a number and prints the multiplication table of that number. Okay. So this one is your question and it is very similar to while loop or for loop that we have previously done. So try to like solve this question right now. Okay. If you don't have any like Python in your system, then you can use this program here, which is Python compiler online. Okay. If you don't have Python in your system, then you can use Python compiler. So you can also write your code here. Okay. So let me provide you this URL. Okay, so this is the question. Write a function that takes user, like that's take a number as an input from the user, any number, and use that number to print the multiplication table of that particular number using functions. And here you can use any loop, for loop or while loop, any loop. Okay. So any answers? Anyone wants to share their code for this particular question or program? Like how do we approach this problem? So first we can create by starting the function, and then we can start a simple loop. Basically, you can just copy your loop and put it inside a function and then call your function. That's it. Okay. So how do we solve this question? So first we can create a function def multi here, let's say. Okay, and here we will take a number. Now here we can use for I in range, right? Let's say from 1 to 11. We want from 1 to 11. And then we can simply print your number, okay, your multiplication sign, comma, your I here, comma, your equal sign as it is, and then num multiply by, sorry, simple I, right? Or we can use print here, or we can just use return here, whatever. And then here we can take input from the user. Okay. So here we can take input from the user. Let's say num, let's say x equal int input, enter your number. Right. And then we can call the function here, multi here. Simple. Okay. So let's see it. Let's run it. We can move on desktop and Python. So let's say we have this number 2 here. Okay, and here you can see we have number of a table of 2 here. Simple. So we have this simple for loop and which we have put inside your function here. And then here we have used call your function. That's it. Okay, as simple as that. Any other questions? So we will solve the functions questions on Monday or Tuesday. Okay. Okay. So in the next session, we will see some functions questions like recursion mainly, and secondly, lambda functions questions. Okay. So any questions up to here? Any doubt? How do we use if here? Basically, we are looping through a numbers, like looping through a range of any numbers. So using if statement will not help here, right? Okay, let me check. Input. This line is wrong here. First, you have to use int here, then input. Int here, and then input. Then you can mention enter the number like this. Okay, then for x in range, don't use space here. And then a. Okay, and here you are using space. Don't use space. And then x here. Yeah. Okay, everything is right. The problem is in this line. First, you have to use int, then input. Okay, then you can run this line. Number, let's say 2 here, and here we have this table of 2. And here you have to put 11 here, because 1 to 10 means 1 to 11 means 1 to 10. So 11 is not included here. Okay, so you have to mention 1 to 11 or just 11. No, basically, if you want to use if inside any function, then you can also take number as input. Okay, it is not compulsory to define number here or in the in the arguments. You can take number as a input from user as well. For example, you can use def even or even odd. Let's say, and here let's say you have this number x here. Then you can check if x modulus 2 equal 0. Then you can print even here. Else you can print odd here. Okay, and here you can simply take your number, this x from user. Let's say here you can use num equal int input, enter the number. And then you can simply call your function even odd. And here you can provide num here. Okay, so if I run this program, you will see, let's say number 2 here. So 2 number is even here. Okay, so you can use if else also, and even you can ask this number x as an input from user. So here we are taking num as a user input, and here we are providing this num variable here. And this num is equal to this x here, which means num contains here, let's say user is providing value 5 here. So 5 is now stores inside num. So now num contains value 5, which means num is equal to x here. Okay, here this is a parameter, sorry, argument num of this particular parameter x. Okay, so x and num are equal here, which means 5. Okay. So rest we will continue in the next session. Thank you guys for attending the session, and kindly practice on these questions on the loops and on the conditionals. Okay, thank you. And rest we will continue in the next session.